display that yesterday in terms of touching the pressure points that persons have. The question that will come down to the voter when they do go to vote is track record, who they think will have the best or the better track record in terms of how it is that they have governed and will govern, because that's going to be the deciding factor, I would think.
Absolutely.
But yesterday, I think the presentation was something that was very interesting, and people are going to be looking at it with great interest over the next couple of weeks and months.
Absolutely so. I always tell people a good idea is one that causes you to think and turn it over in your mind. That alone suggests that it's an idea that is worthwhile of the paper it's written on. Thank you, O'Neill Grant. Thank you, Lloyd. Be all the best to you, gentlemen.
Pleasure.
Yeah, that's my time on Lead Story. Bounding into the studio with boundless enthusiasm is Nika Lewis, and she's wearing, well, I won't tell you, it's a surprise. The news at 7 comes up next.
From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at Noon for Thursday, March 20, 2025. I'm Courtney Lewis. Thank you so much for joining us. A man fatally shot by police in St. James on Wednesday afternoon is believed to have been a person of interest in the shooting of 2 officers during a supermarket robbery attempt on Church Street Tuesday night. The deceased 23-year-old Joshua Tyrrell of Go Peace Lane, Salt Spring, was reportedly killed in a confrontation with police. A 9mm Glock pistol and 2 rounds of ammunition were seized. The injured officers were reportedly taken to the hospital for treatment. Both incidents are being investigated by the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM. Now, the opposition leader made bold promises regarding housing if elected while contributing to the budget debate on Tuesday. Speaking on CVM's Lead Story, former NHT board member O'Neill Grant acknowledged the appeal, but pointed out that many questions remain unanswered in the opposition leader's presentation.
I do have some concerns in terms of how aspects of it is going to be treated. When we are thinking of putting some of those into execution. And some of it has to do with, for instance, how it is that we are going to now deal with the $1 billion grant in such a way that it is equitable, that persons who are seeking to access it are going to be able to say that I'm 35 years old, I am seeking to get a mortgage. Is it a mortgage that's going to be on the private sector development, or is the NHT development? And that is something that I think I could not get from the presentation when I listened to it yesterday. The target of 50,000 houses over the next 5 years sounds similar to the target that has been set in the current dispensation, but there are some realities that met the current target that undoubtedly will face any party or any administration that is seeking to build houses. Is that the absorptive capacity or the capacity of Jamaica to build houses at that rate is very challenging. And that is something that the NHT is noting. And there are many reasons why that is so. One has to do with the supply of labor. There is, in fact, a labor shortage in the construction industry that is impacting the rate of development.
Meanwhile, political commentator Lloyd B. Smith believes that the opposition leader hit the mark by engaging the average Jamaican with his presentation, boosting his political appeal.
He set out to appeal to the ordinary Jamaican who has been going through, we know as a fact that many Jamaicans, notwithstanding the macroeconomic positive indicators, that there are many Jamaicans out there who are in fact feeling the pinch, going to the supermarket, paying their bills, finding money for transportation, finding money to go to doctor, etc., etc. And I therefore felt that the pain points that these people have been focusing on and complaining about for some time, he zeroed in on them. And I thought that was a pragmatic step.
While environmental experts fight to protect vulnerable species from extinction and other dangers, they face a key challenge in doing so: funding. A crocodile sanctuary in St. Thomas could be discontinued in a few years if no financial support is made available. Wildlife conservation biologist at NEPA, Treya Picking, says more support is needed to prolong such initiatives.
Start off with actually building the facility. There were 3 grants that he received, but since receiving those grants, funding has been very limited, and that's something that we're trying to work on. Lawrence has been supporting the facility out of his pocket. He has received funding from agencies like NEPA to cover the costs of, say, responding to rescue situations with crocodiles and other protected species like sea turtles. And then he has received funding from international entities like Gator and Global. But there needs to be more support, a lot more support. So we are looking into trying to gain more, attention on the facility and support, so it can continue to run and it can continue to build capacity, continue to train, continue to do the outreach, the monitoring, and collaborate with all the partners involved.
Now, the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network, Giant, is making a renewed call for a revised school nutrition policy and regulated vending zones. The concern comes as studies show an increase in obesity and non-communicable diseases among Jamaica's children.
We've been talking about vending zones, but why do we need them? So they are crucial around schools to regulate the sale of food and beverages, ensuring that students have access to safe, nutritious, and legally compliant products. And without proper regulation, unmonitored vendors may sell harmful or unhealthy items, putting students at serious risk. One of the things may simply be that our vendors may not have the qualifications we need them to have to be selling food to our children. And it would ensure strict vendor screening and licensing. So ensuring that our vendors do have their food handlers permit and can be around children. Essentially, because we know there is an element of protection to it. Because I was just talking to Dr. Winter, we're saying vendors don't only serve the purpose of just giving children food, but in many ways they're mentors, they're security guards, they're the parents watching out for children as they come into school. So it ensures strict vendor screening and licensing, regulated food sales to ensure that illicit substances, harmful substances, junk food is not sold outside.
The Rotary Club of Port Antonio is working to ensure eye care and eyewear remain accessible to those in need across Portland. While its annual clinic with overseas professionals now runs every other year and patient numbers have declined, the initiative continues to make an impact, with key data to share on its reach and effectiveness.
We certainly find that Caribbean descent black people have much greater nastier glaucoma than the black people back in the States. And I don't know if that's because of their ancestry of where they came from, but it seems like they have it worse and more aggressive.
According to Dr. Brad, an optometrist from South Dakota in the USA, this eye condition, among other things, appeared to be predestined.
I don't think it's something that you can change with lifestyle or exposure to UV light or any of that kind of stuff. It's the anatomy of the eye and the drainage system out of the eye, because there's constantly fluid being produced. You've got to keep that eye full of fluid so it doesn't end up like a prune and all collapsed. So that pressure has to maintain. And if it gets produced more liquid than gets let out, of course the pressure goes up. That puts pressure directly on the nerve that goes to the brain, as well as the blood supply to the nerve. So it's kind of a double whammy of where that damage comes from in glaucoma.
He's on his 24th visit to the island and is one of 5 doctors from a group of 20 of the 2025 Volunteer Optometric Services to Humanity, a mission in collaboration with the Rotary Club of Port Antonio dating back to 1984.
When people get glasses, they're usually good for 1 or 2 years. When their prescriptions change, they get new glasses. So these glasses are lightly used prescriptions, and the other people don't need them anymore, so they donate them, and then we'll match up the power and the prescriptions.
Dr. Larry, who's been coming since 1995, says it's been determined Portlanders enter the ring with a plus.
And in the population in Port Antonio, we have a lot of farsighted people, which is kind of good because farsighted people can see good in the distance. So, and that's not everybody, but the majority of people in Port Antonio are farsighted, so they can see pretty good far away. It's just that they run into the problems with stringing needles and fine print and reading, so we do use a lot of glasses.
Now, persons who are nearsighted and students who are sometimes labeled bad behaving and underperformance because no one sees their struggling eyes also benefit from the free eye care to eyewear services. And after 3 days and sometimes close to 1,000 patients, the tourists' eyes go where the mind goes.
We'll usually do a rafting trip and sometimes snorkeling, sometimes a little fishing, sometimes a trip to Reach Falls. So, and every year we sometimes have new people that come on the team. So, and they're always curious to see what can be done down here.
Another Jamaica to the world opportunity. Curlin Brown, CVM News.
And with that, we take a break. Our discussion segment is next.
Excuse me, that looks delicious. Where did you get that pizza?
Pizza, please. Best pizza in town.
Pizza Please, the widest variety of pizzas in Jamaica. Grab a slice or order a whole pie. Find us at 4 locations across Kingston and Ocho Rios and at pizzapleaseja.com. Pizza Please, Italian pizzas, Jamaican flavors.
People, we now waste no time.
I am super excited to be on for another season to show you the Holy Road.
Listen, new adventures. Slim, get fluffy. That's cool, let's go. We're not going out, you know. Things are only getting hotter and hotter this season.
Click, click, pow, that must tell you something.
There's a great story happening just in our backyard. We are on the Holy Road again.
Sports should be fun. Sports should be interesting. Sports should be entertaining. Sports should be riveting. This is CVM Sports. I'm Jordan Fort.
Welcome back. It's time for a discussion segment. Out in the deep blue sea is an entire ecosystem much yet to be known to man. However, the seabed and the ocean seafloor bears a vast number of rich minerals which are used to help in maintaining life as we know it. But there are concerns. What concerns, you ask? Joining us to speak on the topic of deep sea mining is President of the Jamaica Climate Change Youth Council, the JCCY, Davia Hilton. Welcome, Miss Hilton.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, awesome. First, tell us, what is deep sea mining and how does it compare to other forms of mining extraction?
Deep sea mining is exactly what it sounds like. It's mining at the level of the deep sea, which is anything below 200 meters. What they're planning to do right now is send out these tractor-like vehicles that will go across the ocean floor and pick up polymetallic nodules that have different types of metals, precious metals on it. But it can range in how they do it. They could do deep sea drilling as well as mountaintop removal. But right now they're focusing on the surface level type of mining right now. How does it differ from other types of mining? It's similar in that is extractive, so it does affect the environment that it's in. It does create a lift up of sediment and sediment plumes in the water in the same way that we have air nuisance in mining in Jamaica for bauxite mining. So it's going to affect the environment in those ways, the noise level, the pollution in the water, as well as the actual flora and fauna of the seafloor. and beyond.
So you've mentioned a few reasons why we should be concerned, pollution and so on. How concerned should we be? To what extent should we panic?
I think we should be very concerned because our ocean is so integral to our lives. It's 50% of the oxygen that we breathe. It's literally every other breath. It's a huge carbon sequestration center. So it helps to take out that carbon in the atmosphere that's causing climate change, that's causing global warming. And so what the effects that you're seeing right now, the excessive heat, the horrible hurricanes, the increased natural disasters, that's with our oceans doing its best to protect us. So imagine what it would be like without it. So I think it's something that everyone should be concerned about. It reaches all of us. When I say that when I talk about the sediment rising and the pollution, this is some of the clearest waters in the world where they're planning to mine, which is out in the Pacific Ocean. So imagine if the clearest waters in the world are now so muddy that you can see from outer space. How's that going to affect, say, like the plankton that rely on sunlight to photosynthesize to feed all of nature within the water?
Right.
So it's going to affect quite literally everything. Yeah.
Right. So hold that thought. We will be back right after this break.
The Time is brought to you by Ford Territory.
Sports fans, get off the sidelines and join the action with Just Bet. Bet on your favorite teams anywhere online at www.supremegames.com or visit one of our 100 locations island-wide. With enough games and the best odds, you can win big with Just Bet. Be a part of the game. Feel the thrill of winning. Join the action with Just Bet. Must be 18 years old or to bet. Game responsibly.
Welcome back. We're still in our discussion segment and we're talking deep sea mining with Miss Hilton. Now, what are the ethical considerations surrounding deep sea mining, especially in terms of indigenous marine species and their habitats?
Yeah, it's definitely a huge ethical concern, mostly because it's not in our region. This is in international waters. The decision is being made by countries internationally that have signed on to the UN Convention. However, those waters, the Pacific Ocean, it's nearby Pacific Islands. So native people, indigenous people that live there don't really have as much of a say. They have the same vote that every other country does. So it's a lot of colonialism then to go into someone's area and say that you have, the authority to do this huge new industry that could affect them first and worst, and then eventually affect the rest of the world without even really consulting your own citizens. So a lot of people don't know about this, not just in Jamaica, but in the rest of the world. Your country is, flying to Jamaica to represent your country's interest, but they're not talking to the people. So how do you make those decisions on your own that affects the rest of the world when these meetings are so small and so secretive and quiet? When we first heard about it, it was closed door meetings. Now they've opened it up to civil society, but most people don't know to apply to enter. So there's that ethical concern. Then there's just the loss of life that will happen at the level of the deep sea, and then eventually reach its way on land because we all depend on the deep sea. Life started in the water, life started in the ocean, and if we mess with that, I think it ends our life here as well. It's all very much connected. We need our ecosystems to survive.
Right. So let's bring it back home. What is Jamaica's role on the International Seabed Authority? Has Jamaica been involved in any of these conversations?
Yes, we've been involved on 3 different levels. One, that we are a country that signed on to the convention, so we have a vote with every other country. So that's about equal with everyone else. But then it's also this added thing of us being the host country to the body, and we're the only Caribbean country that is host to a UN body, maybe even the only small island developing state that is. So we have this more burden of care that we should think of, that we are a small island developing state, and so we should consider climate change in our decisions. But also, any of these decisions that are made, our name follows that. Say the Paris Agreement, you think of France, they made that decision, those agreements in Paris, France. If they make that decision here in Jamaica, then what would they call it? The Jamaican Agreement to end marine life. So it does reflect on us. And then the third thing is that any country that signed on to the convention can sponsor a company to mine, because a company can't just get up and mine the international waters. It doesn't belong to them. It doesn't belong to any one country either. And so all countries have the same kind of power to be able to give permission or oversee a company to mine. And Jamaica has signed on into one of those contracts with Blue Minerals Jamaica. So it kind of gives us this more